This week's episode is sponsored by the Breakthrough to Excellence book. This book will help guide the reader through overcoming self-doubt and fear and acquiring professional prosperity. In this book, it takes a deep dive with research, science, and real-life stories of women who courageously push past the fear to conquer their goals. You can find out more at www.breakthroughtoexcellence.com. Welcome to the Breakthrough to Excellence podcast. I'm Jasmine Haley, healthcare provider turned educator, entrepreneur, and startup strategist. Not too long ago, I was burnt out, overwhelmed, depressed, and full of fear from a toxic work environment. I created my business out of necessity to create a legacy I can be proud of today. It helps me transform the lives of women every single day to pursue their dreams and entrepreneurial goals. I created this podcast to share the empowering stories of entrepreneurial women, help you break through self-doubt to your greatness, and share business strategies to help you create a thriving and profitable business. If you are an emerging entrepreneur or business owner that wants to create the mindset needed to escape burnout, reclaim your personal power, and pursue your entrepreneurial dreams, this podcast is for you. Stay tuned and listen in. Welcome to the Breakthrough to Excellence podcast. This is your host, Jasmine Haley, and our guest for this episode is Kimon Napier. Kimon is a hiring expert and the CEO of the Lean Process Strategist. She partners with service-minded entrepreneurs to optimize their businesses using strong people leadership and strategic input. She has several years of experience working with senior leaders and entrepreneurs by providing strategy and HR support. Kimon helps entrepreneurs grow their teams with intention, reduce their overwhelm, and attract high-quality candidates. Kimon's goal is to customize a solution to help you scale your business and to become the visionary leader that you crave to be. Welcome to the show, Kimon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Jasmine. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, I'm super excited to have you on the show. I have mentioned you previously on several different outlets. I can't even tell you which ones I've said your name, but when I think about HR, you are the GOAT. You are the GOAT when it comes to HR. You have helped me and my own team in finding our community manager when we were in need of a community manager, and just experiencing your level of excellence was enough for me to sing your praises to the hilltops. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. So I had to have you on the show. I'm so happy that our schedules finally aligned. Y'all, we've been working on having her on the show since months ago. Okay. So I just want to introduce you first. Let's introduce you first to our listeners and kind of talk about how Kimon got into this world of HR. So tell us about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, sure. I'll even tell you a little bit before that too. So in terms of like experience, I've always worked in HR and operations specifically, even before I became an entrepreneur. That's what I went to school for. Fast forward like way back, my original thing is that I wanted to be a lawyer. And then once I started like looking at different facets of law, I got really interested in like employment law, and then that transitioned to HR. And then I ended up going to school to get my master's degree in that. So that has been my trajectory. And then it was like around 2018 that I started getting that, entrepreneurial spirit, I would say, because I wanted to start crafting a business of my own. At that time, I was working with government agencies here in New York City. So I kind of wanted to slow down a bit. And I wanted to have something of my own, because one thing that I had experienced in my time working there is that, at the time I was young and on the come up. So often, people would take my ideas and run with them, and I didn't really like that. And I was like, you know what, if people who are like 20, 30 years my senior think that what I have to say is super valuable and they love my ideas but didn't want to give me credit, then that means I'm the bomb.com. So that means that I should do something on my own. That's just how I felt. And then in 2018, I finally made the decision that I said, okay, I'm going to start doing some consulting. So I started freelancing. And that's kind of how I stepped my foot into the door. And then, in 2019, I made the final decision that I'm like, okay, I'm going to cut ties 100%, and I never went back to corporate, and it's been history ever since. So I've loved what I've been doing. I've got to support amazing businesses, and I've met amazing people in the online space. So it's been a series of up and downs, because that's just entrepreneurship. It's never, a straight path. You go through different experiences to get to where you're going, but it's been wonderful. And I love the fact that it's something that I created for myself. So that's kind of been my trajectory to where I'm at now.
That's so awesome. And I love how you said it. It's not a straight path. It never is, which is why, y'all, we have another topic on HR. Because as businesses, as we're scaling and growing, we struggle with our team development and hiring the right team. Why do you think we struggle so much with this as we're scaling our businesses? Kimon.
Honestly, I think one thing, I would say there's a multitude of things, but the one thing that comes to mind, in my opinion, I think as entrepreneurs, especially if you are a woman, as an entrepreneur, you're so used to doing everything on your own. And, when you start being an entrepreneur, you start your own business, you have different hats on. So you're doing, your sales calls, you might be doing your website, your social media, everything while you're showing up and serving your clients. So it's just a lot of things as you're on your plate. And when you start scaling, you're still doing all those things, but now you're overwhelmed, because at that point you're like, man, this is way too much. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't know how to start delegating things over to a team member. They don't know how to manage or even lead a team. And it's a huge problem. I've seen people waste thousands and thousands of dollars trying to hire someone for their team, because they didn't have a process in order to do that. So it's a big issue that I see a lot of entrepreneurs have. But I would say, one thing that is key is to plan and prepare for that well ahead of time. So even if you're not at the point where you're scaling like to maybe 5-figure months and you're just starting out, just have it in the back of your mind or written down somewhere what you're envisioning for yourself long term, because trust me, that's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So a couple of episodes ago, we did a topic on what to do before you hire. Now let's talk about once our team is actually there. Okay. And I think, there's some components of our conversation today that we have to go back to the prior to hiring them, because the complexities that we deal with once they're hired is things that we ignored when we were hiring them. So I just want to put this out for the listeners, okay? So we're here talking about our team once they're in place, and I would love to know, what would you say are some of the common things that we struggle with once they are here with us and we're trying to scale and grow our businesses?
I would say I'll say the top thing. There's a multitude of things, but the top thing is honestly communication. That might sound really shocking, but communication is key. So often what I'll see is that, business owners will hire someone and they're on the team, and then this person doesn't even know what to do because they're not communicating with the person. And the reason is because they themselves are busy, as the business owner, like they're doing stuff for their clients. They have so many people pulling them in multitude of directions that they're not even communicating with this new team member, which is crucial, especially within the first 90 days, because that's like the make or break for any new hire. And one thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that communication is high, at least within the 3 months. I mean, of course, you're going to continue to talk to your employees or your contractors as they are on your team, but you want to do it more often when they just start out. So the way that can kind of look is that when they start, you want to have a call with them to kind of set the expectations from the get-go and go over the expectations of the roles so they know what they're supposed to be doing each and every day, the tasks that they need to be doing every week and what they're managing. Because what you want to do is you don't necessarily want somebody who feels that they have to come to you for everything all the time. So once you start to set that expectation as they continue to learn the role, eventually you want them to manage what it is that you set the expectation for in the long run. So after 90 days, they should be on this go energy that they know what it is that they need to do. And they should be helping you to start seeing things and connecting the dots in places that you didn't have the time to think of before you brought them on. So communication is always key when you first bring somebody onto your team.
Yeah, and there's no time, and I think, I'm guilty of this, and I don't know if you've seen this with other CEOs. They feel like once they hire someone, they're like, oh, now I can breathe, but there's still work. Like there's still work, and I love the fact that you mentioned, communication. In fact, today, one of the things that I had mentioned to my team today was our team's meeting, our biweekly meeting, which I think I'm going to change to weekly, because I just feel like biweekly isn't enough, and I feel like there's still so much that we need to talk about. But one of the things I've noticed is that yes, communication doesn't have to end, but you can still set some boundaries around that.
Yes.
So you can still set them up with the processes that they need to be familiar with. You can still help them feel supported, but that doesn't mean that you need to be available 24/7, because you still have to run a business. So for instance, our team, we use Voxer, but I've also stated, hey, let's still meet since you're still new once a week for an hour and hash out everything that we need to hash out where I can be focused in the conversation. This is for solopreneurs that don't have an online business manager, by the way. But I have noticed that it was a struggle even in the communication part of knowing when to kind of shut it off and also get them to a place where they feel empowered to lead in the direction that they're supposed to lead in for their business. So what would you say are some ways that we can empower more of our team members more to really accept that leadership role?
Honestly, it's by telling them. You'd be surprised 9 out of 10 times your employees, your contractors, whoever's on your team don't feel empowered enough to take over things and take them off your plate 100%. I know that's going to sound weird, but often they think that they'll have to be bothering you all the time, or they have to come to you and ask you questions all the time. But the point is that you want to empower them. So that's why I said once they come on, it's to start empowering them to take things over and to, start doing things on their own. Now, of course, there might be minor mistakes, which is why you want communication to be at a high. So I agree when you said that, having the weekly meeting. So if the way this would look like, so if you don't have like an operations manager or online business manager to have these weekly meetings with your team, that's going to default to you at the moment. So the way this would look is that you can have, and it doesn't have to be long. They could be like 20 to 30-minute check-ins with this team member every week, right? And that will be their opportunity for both of you to get on the same page. And a great tool that you could also utilize too is Slack, or you could use Voxer. So Slack is more like a chat type of thing that you could use. Voxer is sending like voice notes. So there's different ways to keep the communication at an all-time high, but it's important overall. And then I know we're talking about things after the hire, but one thing that you should have before you even make the hire is start documenting the processes, because you want them to know how to wow you. You want to empower them to say like, okay, this is what I'm looking for when I'm asking you to do this. So for example, if you maybe have like an online course and you are hiring somebody that you want to upload content there, and there's a specific format, a great way to do that is to record a video or document the SOP that it's ready for them to have as a resource once they come on the team, because that is going to empower them. So they can look at that on their own free time and they're like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do. And if they have additional questions, you have that weekly meeting with them, or your OBM or your operations manager can meet with them weekly to clarify any questions. So communication, again, is always key. But another big thing is documenting processes, because it's going to save you time in the long run. So the first 30 days is going to be pivotal. You're going to be doing a lot of work, at least in the first month. Still in the first 90 days, but the first 30 days, you'll feel it the most. But when you have these things that you've planned and prepared, it's just going to set you up for success in the long run.
Yeah. And so you have to be patient.
Very patient. I know, as business owners, we have this, mentality that we'll say like, oh man, I just want somebody to come on my team and take it and run with it. But you have to give them some leeway, right? Let them get acclimated to your team and how you like to do things first, and then they can take it and run with it. Because by that time, you've empowered them with the knowledge and the tools to wow you and to take things off your plate and to really manage that process in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I think, a lot of times when we're in business, we tend to reach out or get a team member, or, you know, we work from a reactive state. So it's always like this, let me um get these fires out.
Yep. I know exactly what you mean.
And never really think about or plan ahead of time to really say, hey, like 6 months from now, I'm just going to say something else. I want to have a 6-figure launch. Well, actually, a 6-figure launch really takes over a year or more to plan, and you have to be in a certain place in your own business to be able to reach that. So, like, there's so much forethought that has to happen in business, more than just, I'm going to give my heart to this. Because after a while, what's gonna happen is you're gonna get burnt out and overwhelmed and overworked, just like I was.
And your
Most of
expectations is going to be let down. Like you're going to find yourself like, oh my gosh, like this is not what I envisioned. So for example, like with hiring too, one thing that you'll see a lot of CEOs or business owners in like the online space that they'll do is that they'll feel overwhelmed and they'll say, oh my gosh, I need like somebody, like I need like a copywriter, right? That's like a big role that we see in the online space. So they'll go on like maybe Facebook and they'll post like, I need a copywriter, and they'll get hundreds of responses. But if you don't specify what that looks like, it's going to be super overwhelming for you. One, you're going to get 1,000,001 DMs and there's no process to kind of filter that out. So that's overwhelming, one. And then there's different kinds of copywriters. So there's sales, there's people who are copywriters for like blogs. So it's like, what do you want them to be a copywriter for? And it's honestly by taking maybe even an hour to kind of collect your thoughts as to what you're looking for. I'm not saying that you can't put a Facebook post out there, but create the process first. Set yourself up for success and maybe share a link with people and say like, okay, here's my job description. Here's the application. So they can actually send people to that and it'll help filter them out. It's like a very important step. It might sound like a no-brainer, but you would be surprised how many people skip that. And then they are super overwhelmed, or the person that they hire is not what they were trying to hire or had expectations for bringing on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I'm curious because you actually get to see a world that I'm not privy to. And that is really ins and outs of people's back end of how they're supporting their business with the work that you do. So what would you say is like a common thing that you've seen for people who are scaling and growing as their struggle in their business, whether they have a multi 6-figure business or $1 million business? Is there a running theme or something common that you may see besides the communication that they often struggle with?
One thing that they struggle with, well, it's different things, but one thing is that they'll struggle with systems because they're already overwhelmed and tired. So they don't even have the opportunity or the bandwidth sometimes mentally to sit down and actually document those systems. So that's one thing. Surprisingly, they have trouble actually managing a team because, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of business owners in the online space may not necessarily have had any management experience. So some people, it's the opposite. So some folks have trouble hiring, right? And then, they'll find somebody like me or partner with somebody like me to do that for them. But then some folks have trouble actually managing and leading a team. And if you can't lead a team, you're going to set yourself up for success because your team will feel that. 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up losing some type of money because, I mean, although you're going to be empowering your team members, you do want to check in on things with them all the time, making sure that tasks are done on time and all of that. So that's another troublesome area that I see people have problems with is actually leading in management. And then funny enough, like I would say the last big things that I've seen that folks have trouble with is like mindset. It's interesting. They feel like they're not
Mm.
worthy to have the team, or they feel like they have not made enough money to actually bring on additional help. I mean, that sounds odd. And I've seen, women and other business owners who are super successful. And I'm like, you're doing amazing things. But in their mind, they think, well, I haven't made enough money to actually bring on this additional help. So they're sitting there drowning in their task list and their to-dos and things that need to get done because it's like they feel like they're not worthy enough. So
Wow.
in my work, I always have to do a lot of mindset shifting when I'm
Mhm.
working with some folks, because that is a big area that I've seen many people struggle with.
Wow. And see, the mindset work never ends.
Never.
You know,
Mindset comes in everything you do.
it never ends. It never, ever, ever ends. And we got to get to a point of understanding. I think I keep hearing a word come up, and every time you're talking, we have to be reminded again that in business, if you have chosen, because we all choose, if you decide to start own your own business, it's you that chose it. It wasn't your clients that's getting on your nerves. It wasn't, somebody else. You chose this route for yourself. Well, it also is going to stretch you to becoming the best leader you can be. And oftentimes we don't think about what kind of leadership skills should I be acquiring at this point in time so I could fully support the growth of my business and the vision that I foresee.
I agree. And being a CEO and a business owner is hard work. Your work never stops because you also have to constantly develop yourself as well. So as your business continues to scale, that business is going to look different. So that's going to mean like different laws, different things. And you need to be well prepared as a leader to kind of handle all of those things. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that comes back to, constantly receiving coaching. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I think people struggle with a lot is balance. Um, when people are working with me, a lot of times they're coming to me in like a frenzy or in a place of overwhelm, and they don't have the support that they need, to balance their family life, to balance self-care. Self-care is a big issue for a lot of business owners and their business. So they feel like they have to sacrifice one over the next in order to be successful. Because I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I don't know about you, Jasmine, but nobody gave me a handbook on how to run an online business or how to
That was a hot mess, okay?
you know? So it's always a constant journey. And that's why when I started out talking, I said that, entrepreneurship and running a business is never a straight path. You go through a series of things in order to make it on your journey. So that's one of the most important things. And like we were talking about before, like that constant mindset work is definitely key. Um, to prepare yourself for things that are coming in advance, because you never know what may happen, and you want to make sure that you yourself are, spiritually strong to deal with whatever is coming your way.
Mm,
Whether that is if your team member is leaving and you have to find another person,
yep.
I mean, you might get sued. There's so many things that could happen in business, but you want to make sure that you yourself is strong and you can deal with things as they come up in your business. So again, mindset work is always key.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that you shared that. And it isn't, as many of us said, I know it sounds cliche, but entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. Can you still make an amazing impact and, you know, impact your clients, impact your community, impact your own family? Absolutely. But there's a side of business that you have to understand that it's a business. It's just it, and the great thing is that this is a business that can be built the way you see fit, but it still requires organization. It still requires you to put those big girl underwear on, right? Put those big girl panties on and make some difficult decisions along the way and get clear, or get the help that you need from professionals like Kimon, or a coach or a consultant that can give you the clarity you need so that you can direct the people that work for you who are looking for your leadership.
I have to agree. And it's interesting because what I've noticed that a lot of folks, what they don't realize is that they may not even have an online business. They may not have a business. What they might be doing is freelancing and they're calling it a business. Because if you think about it, if you're working from a place that you're a team of one and you have no additional support, you're freelancing. That's not a business because it's not scalable. At some point you're going to reach your ceiling and you're going to say like, I have no more time to give. And then you have to start to give away and delegate some things so you can make it a business. So a lot of, folks are in this space where they've been used to doing so many things on their own. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know people making so much money doing that and are happy with that. But in the long run, you will reach your ceiling as to the amount of clients that you could have, as to how much time you have in your day, because it's going to be solely reliant on you. So at that point, you want to start outsourcing and giving things away to kind of make your business scalable. That's going to be a main focus for you in the long run. So even if you're new to entrepreneurship, eventually you're going to have to start crafting that plan to start either duplicating yourself or starting to give things away so you can focus on things like the strategy and the sales and the content and things that your time is, needed. Things that you can do that maybe no one else can do in your business. So the business task is where your focus should be in the long run.
Yes, absolutely. So, if you're at a loss right now on what the next step is to do for your particular business, you have a team in place. You are currently scaling and growing your business, unfortunately, in chaos. But things need to change in regards to your team. What would you say the first thing you would tell a potential person like that to do would be?
The first thing that I would say is that I think you need to focus on your strategy. So you need to actually sit down and write down what it is that you want. I know that sounds very cliche, but it helps. And you need to get clear, okay, what is the next step for the future of your business? So for like you, Jasmine, what is the next step for breakthrough to excellence? Like what is my year going to look like? So if your team right now is not the right team, or you maybe have no team, who are the people that I need on my team right now to help me get to where I'm needing to go? And if you start looking at it from that lens, then it's going to become clear to you some of the things that you need to be doing. A great exercise is to honestly time track. So if you are right now like a team of one and you're doing every and anything in your business, you want to start to analyze where your time is spent in your business. And then once you have, the data, because numbers don't lie, what will happen eventually is that you can sit there and see like, wow, I'm just doing all of this amount of time on copy. I'm doing this amount of time on like my website. I'm doing this amount of time on admin tasks. And that's going to help you really be able to analyze, okay, I'm spending my time in these areas. These are some of the roles that I'm going to need on my team. And you don't have to hire everyone right now. I would say the best thing to do, especially if you're of the mindset that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not making the most money in my business right now. I need some help. And you're like, man, who do I focus on hiring first? The first thing you want to do is figure out, okay, where is the time most needed? What's going to give me the biggest return on my investment in a quicker way? So then I can start to focus on scaling things. And 9 times out of 10, if you approach it from that place, you'll know who you need to hire next. And then once you start to make the money, you're getting more time to focus on things because your time is worth money. The 3 hours you just spent trying to edit your website, you could have hired somebody to probably do it in like 30 minutes, right? Because I want you to change your mindset that your time is worth money.
Yes.
And once you start to hire that first person, the next hires become easier. So, one thing is that I'm not about giving anybody a broken solution. It's about creating a repeatable process for yourself, because you're going to need that as you continue to grow and scale, because you'll hire the first person. The first hire is always the hardest. And then you're like, okay, this is working. who do I need to bring in next for me to get more return on investment, my time, and all of that. And that's how you're going to get to the scalable path in your business.
Yes. Preach. Okay. Where are my my sound effects? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Here's my final question to you, because we covered quite a bit, but I want to know, if we went back to the very beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, what word of advice would you give yourself?
The word of advice I would give myself is patience. That's going to sound cliche because I know you mentioned it earlier, but patience is what I would say, because I've always been a go-getter. I have always been high fact finder, so I could figure out things easily. But I think had I been a little bit more patient with myself, I would have gave myself a little bit more grace, because I remember when I started, I was like, man, I have to do all of these things. This is the time where I am new to online business. I don't even know anybody in the online space. And I'm like, okay, so this is the way to do all of these things. And I was trying to do way too much at first. And me, myself, who focuses on hiring and HR, found myself burnt out in like my first 30 days. And I was like, you know what? Had I been a little bit more patient and focused on what I needed to do at first, it would have served me better, right? Than for me to be feeling overwhelmed, because that's not the reason that I left, corporate America. I didn't leave corporate America to come into my own business to feel the same way. So once I figured that out, I was like, hold on a second, I need to reset this. So that would be my word of advice for myself, is to be more patient at first. And this is something that most people go through, right? They leave a situation because they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm going to start my online business, not necessarily knowing the facets that, come with running an online business or any type of business, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So being patient with yourself to know, like, okay, I'm going to do one thing at a time. I'm not going to overwhelm myself, because that's not the reason that I started this business. Rethink to yourself, what is the reason that you got into this business? And 9 times out of 10, I would say most entrepreneurs were like, they weren't feeling their other situation, whether it's they were working maybe for a company, they had a 9 to 5, whatever it was. They wanted to start taking ownership and have control over their day. And they wanted freedom and flexibility. So thinking about that when you start your business is going to really help you. So be patient with yourselves, because like I said, business is never a straight and narrow path.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to help you in the long run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Please let the listeners know where they can find out more information about the services that you offer.
Yeah, definitely. So I am active on Instagram. My username is @simplykimon, and you can always catch me at KimonNapier.com. I love to do lots of live videos, giving you loads and loads of information and tips as you are on your entrepreneurial journey. And if you are somebody who is struggling right now in terms of trying to figure out who you can afford to hire, or anything like that, I do have a free budget calculator. So if you go to kimon.me, you will be able to download that for free, and I will walk you through how to figure out how much you can afford for your next hire, because I'm not trying to have you burnt out and stressed. I'm trying to give you a solution to help propel you forward in your business. So those are the ways that you can contact me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kimon. I appreciate you for coming on the show today and all of the knowledge that you shared with us.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Thanks for tuning in to the show. Dive in deeper by visiting the show notes for this episode or listening to more episodes on JasmineHaley.com. If you found value in the show, share with a friend or leave us a review. I'll see you next time.